As you know, I recently published a book, and I said that the next one was going to be about investing. But I asked myself a question. Does the world today need another book about investing? There are so many of them that has already been written. The great ones, security analysis, the intelligent investor, and there are not so good ones, but still there are hundreds of thousands of books that have been written about investing because everyone believes that they have this idea, this one edge about how to calculate the intrinsic value of any stock. But let me tell you something. There is something wrong in all of these books. And I haven't given up the idea of writing a book. It's just that things have changed a little. So the thing is that any book, it can be this one, it can be any book, there is some sort of relationship between the reader and the writer. And the reader is a participant in the book. They want to come to a conclusion once they read the book. If you are going to read The Intelligent Investor from Ben Graham, the conclusion from that is that there is a difference between value and price. This is the introduction to value investing. Before this book, this conclusion, not many people thought about it. So this is what you get from the book once you read it. But today, most of the books that are being written that people want to read about investing, the conclusion they want to come up with, and I'm guilty of this, is that we need to find a formula on how to make money. That's it. Even intrinsic value, there needs to be a formula how to calculate the intrinsic value. I read all the letters of Warren Buffett, and I was always looking for this one formula to calculate the intrinsic value of any company. This formula is simple, by the way. It's the discounted future cash flows of the company. But this raises other questions. What is the discount rate we need to use? How do we know what are going to be the future cash flows of the company? Because this is the future we are talking about. And then there are other people who wrote books on these. These are the academics. The discount rate is just the weighted average cost of capital. But the more you go into it, the more complicated it gets. And all these people are going to tell us that investing is more an art than a science. Yet they make it more complicated, more scientific all the time, more formulaic all the time. So what's my solution? What am I thinking of doing? I think a book, if really I want to write something that isn't on the market, that is new, it should be something that encourages the reader to ask questions. Because this is how you learn. This is how I learn as an investor. It's not these books that made me, I'm not going to say great investor, but let's say not such a bad investor. It's not these books. It's the 10K. It's the annual reports of companies. When you're reading an annual report, okay, first time I saw the word goodwill, I had no idea what was goodwill. So I had to do some research on Google, on Reddit to find about goodwill. And now it's even easier with ChatGPT, with other AI tools. So this is how I learn as an investor. Of course, if you have a background in finance, it's easier for you. But still, this is, I believe, how you need to learn about investing. It's not about learning how to perform surgery where you need to know everything before you start doing it, or learning how to fly a plane. And if I use this principle to write a book, it will be just one line: read financial reports. But then the book will be useless. What should be in this book is encouraging people to ask questions. And if you read security analysis, this is actually what Ben Graham wanted to achieve. Because when he writes about, let's say, the liquidation value, which most people believe was the tangible book value of the company, but he tells us that no, because when the company is being liquidated, you cannot sell inventory at 100% of its book value. So you take a discount, and then he tells us, he gives us this number and tells us you can use the net current asset value as a proxy for that number. So he makes us think. The question we need to ask ourselves is, where else did we get the accounting wrong? This is the question you ask yourself. And whenever you're analyzing another company, even if it is not being liquidated, even if the liquidation value is useless, but you ask yourself, this number here, how did it get here? What's the logic behind it? Is it accurate if you want to find the intrinsic value of the company? If you read Margin of Safety by Seth Gorman, the idea behind it is to ask that there are multiple intrinsic value. There's not just one number, different probabilities. So the thinking is that, okay, I got this intrinsic value, so what can go wrong for me to go even lower? to have a margin of safety? This is the questions you ask once you read these books. And I have been listening to an audiobook recently. It's from Richard Prum. He's an ornithologist, a bird scientist, and the book is about birds. It's called The Evolution of Beauty. Okay, so what's interesting in this book and how does this help me as an investor? There is a principle called the handicap principle. I never heard about it before. First time. So what it means is that things are so bad that they actually become good. Best example would be the peacock tail. We all know the peacock has a beautiful tail. So this tail is a handicap because the peacock cannot fly with it. It is slow with it. It cannot run away that fast compared to other birds of its size. So it is a handicap. But it is so good of a handicap that it survived. That's the logic behind the handicap principle. And this got me thinking about Crocs. Everyone says that Crocs is ugly. Most people say that it's ugly. And maybe it is ugly, but it is so ugly that it became beautiful that it is a bestseller. It created a mode. You cannot come and try to compete with Crocs on ugliness. You make an uglier shoe, it's not going to sell. But Crocs, it was so ugly that it became beautiful. I would never have thought about this reading an accounting book. It's not really that the investing books are bad. It's more about you are the reader. When you're reading the book, you want to come to that number, that conclusion. You want to come to that formula that is going to change your life. But it's not how it works. You have to interact with the book. You need to think, how do I apply this in my life? How do I ask the right questions? So what does it mean for my next book about investing? Oh, before that, don't forget to buy this on Amazon if you haven't yet, or if you already bought it, you already read it, please make sure to leave a review. So why am I writing a book about investing and why I think I can do something different? When you think about asking questions, the best person to come in mind will be Socrates, but we don't know if Socrates really existed. So everything about Socrates was written by Plato. Plato, he wrote in dialogues. Even Galileo, when he published his work, it was in dialogues, even talking to each other, asking questions. So I want my next book about investing, of course, to have a little of that format. I'm not saying it's going to be 100% dialogue, but it's mostly encouraging the reader to ask the right questions or to think about the next question to ask. Because you cannot write a book where you say, this is all the questions there are about investing. There are questions that the reader will have to think by himself or herself. Of course, it is going to take me more time to write this book. I'm hoping by end of 2026. But in the meantime, as an investor, what I will encourage you to do is to ask questions. This is the easiest, the best way for you to become better as an investor. Look at the financial report, ask yourself questions. Why this number is here? Evolution Gaming, great company. Their effective tax rates have been 5% for all these years. Suddenly it became 15%. Why? This is the type of question you need to ask. And the answer why it's like that is because of new regulations in Sweden. And if you're interested to know more about evolution, I would recommend you watch this video next. Have a nice day and goodbye.
Just a second, we'll take a video.